Hello my quilting friends! Leah Day here with a new sit-down quilting video. Today I want to share with you how I maintain my Grace Qnique machine. I'm going to show you how to change a bobbin, how to oil it, and how to change a needle. So let's get started. The first thing I want to show you is how to access the bobbin area. And I've got a lot of stuff here on the machine. It's down in a quilty table and I've got a queen size Supreme slider on top, so I'm just going to lift that off. And then this is an insert that goes around the machine. So I just slide that to the left. And unfortunately, there's no other way to access the bobbin area than to have to move your insert every time. But the good news is the bobbins are really, really big. So it's not like you're going to have to do this very often. So you dig in there and grab your bobbin case. And then to wind your bobbin, this is just like normal, any kind of external bobbin case, you place the bobbin in, and I always think turn it clockwise. So you make sure that it's spinning clockwise, and then wind it out just like normal, and then we'll replace it. So, you know, while yes, you do have to move the quilt and move the insert and move the Supreme slider, it's not that big of a deal, and as you can see, I changed that out really, really quickly. Now, while it's open like this, let me show you how to oil the machine. So here's a side view of the bobbin case, and I'm just going to do a drop or two of oil into this hook, and that's just going to help it spin nicely. I'm also going to do a drop or two of oil into these two holes at the top of the machine. So the next thing I want to show you how to do is change the needle, and I am using these Schmetz 8012 needles, and these are designed for long arms. You can tell because it says 135x5 or DPX5 on the package. So that's what you're looking for. So I just pull out one of these, and changing the needle's pretty easy, but you just want to make sure that it's going up and installed, number one, the right direction and fully installed up into the machine. I realized that I was not installing the needle high enough. I wasn't inserting it all the way, and I started getting skipping stitches. So one thing to note is long arm needles are completely round. You can see this. They don't have that flat back to make them easy to install. So you've got to really pay attention to the needle itself in order to get it properly inserted in the machine. So the first thing to note is the hole. So you want the hole, the way I have my machine set up is I'm going to have it facing the left. That's technically the front of the machine. Now you have a side that kind of dips inward, and then you have a groove on the opposite side. You want the side with the groove to be facing the front of the machine. So I'm going to insert it here, making sure that that's facing the left side here, or the front of the machine. I want to make sure it's all the way seated, so I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and just help me to make sure that it goes all the way up into the machine. And here's the way I can tell is there is a little hole here right above the screw hole. Here's the screw that we use to tighten up the needle, and then there's a little hole here that's kind of a viewfinder. You want to look through that and make sure that you can see the needle through that hole. And if you can, then you know, and it's fully filling up that little hole, then you know that it is all the way inserted and it's right. And I'm also double checking. You might have to rotate the needle around. You're making sure that the hole in the needle is facing this side of the machine, and that little dip part in the back of the needle is facing the right side of the machine. So that's how you change a needle. Again, refer to your manual just in case if you want to double check. So that's the basics of maintaining your machine. Now you might be wondering how often to oil your machine and change your needle. Generally I change my needle whenever it starts showing signs of wear, or I know that I have really done a lot of stitching in it. And when I'm on my home machine, I usually use the bobbin changes as a guide. So like 2 bobbin changes and I'll change my needle. With this machine, because the bobbins are so huge, you really can't use bobbin changes as a guide anymore. So I kind of go off of, a week per needle because I'm not quilting that much right now. If I was quilting every single day for hours every day, I'd probably change it more often. When it comes to oiling the machine, again, I can't use the bobbin changes as a guide, so I generally go with about every 2 to 3 days, and then I'll oil the machine again. So you kind of have to find your own rhythm with that and figure out some way of pacing yourself and knowing when it's time to brush out the machine and oil it. I would have to say I get very little lint in this machine because I'm using isocord thread, so I haven't really had very much need to brush it out, which has been really nice. So this is just the basics of maintenance, and I think it's really important to take good care of your machine and always be looking at ways that you can keep it running smoothly. So one big piece of advice I have is anytime that you change something on your machine, so when you change your bobbin, you change your thread, you change a needle, anytime anything like that changes, I really think it's a good idea to switch from your quilt to a practice sandwich and just do maybe 3 lines of stitching. It'll help you check in on the machine and make sure it's running well. It'll check your tension. And then if anything's going wrong, it'll allow you to notice it off your real quilt so you won't have to do any ripping. This is something that saved me a lot of time this week. So I changed my needle, and then all of a sudden I started dealing with these really bad skip stitches. Like I basically could not take 3 stitches in any direction without skips. It was super frustrating. And it took me a little while to troubleshoot it and figure out what I was doing wrong. And it turns out I wasn't inserting my needle high enough into the machine. And that's why I grabbed that pair of pliers and made sure I was jamming it all the way up in there, right? So this is one of those things that can make a big difference. And if I had jumped right back onto one of my quilts, well, then I would have a lot of ripping to do and a whole lot of frustrated tearing my hair out stuff, right? So always grab a practice sandwich and do that little bit of stitching on that practice sandwich. And that way your ugly stitches are all in one place and not on a real quilt. So I hope that that tip helps you, and I hope that you will take very good care of your machine. If you have any questions about this video or suggestions for future videos, please post them in the comments below. I really want to make more videos for this series and be making videos that you want to see. So definitely share your thoughts and comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel on YouTube so you don't miss out on the next quilting video coming out soon. Until next time, let's go quilt.